change file creation permission. Now you notice that when you run the command touch or copy or anything like that to create a file, by default it creates certain permissions with that. So this is the lecture where we will learn how to change the default file permission creation. So the command to use is umask. And what does umask do? Umask is a command to set default permissions of any newly created file or directory. So, in this example, if you are on a shell prompt and you could run a umask space u plus rw, meaning for user, it will have read and write permission. For group, it will have only read permission, and for others, it will not have read, write, or executable permission. So if you run that on your terminal and then you run a command touch to create a new file, it will set these values by default. So let's log into the Linux machine, and I could explain to you exactly how this works. So I have my Linux machine right here. Let me open up the terminal. So my terminal is opened up. I am logged in as myself, and my host name is my first Linux VM. Now, when I run a command touch to create a new file, for example, ss or js, for example, js for Jerry Seinfeld, hit enter, and when I do ls minus ltr to list that file, and you notice the JS has a file permission of read and write, no execute for owner, read, write, no execute for group, and just write for others, and nothing, no execution, no write for others. Now, what if you want to create a file going forward and you want to make sure that it assigns a different set of permissions right here, instead of you creating a file first and then going in and running the change mod command and then assigning the permission? So it doesn't happen many times that you would have to do that in corporate world, but there might be some application requirement or user requirement where they will need to set these permissions up. Now the first question is how your system sets up those permission by default. By default, when you look at a file called, when you do cat on etc bash rc, you'll see there is this umask set here. So when you log into your system, your login prompt actually goes into first its own .bash rc, which is dash ls minus la, and do more, and you'll notice we have a file called .bash rc. So when your shell goes in here and it sees, hey, is there a set value for me to assign those permission for file creation? If it doesn't see it, then it will go to its global file, which is cat etc bash rc, and that's where it sees, oh yeah, I have this file permission. So every time the user will create the file, it will set that permission. So now let's do ls minus ltr, and you notice that I created a file called js, and it has this file permissions. Now if I want to change that file permission while I'm logged into this shell, not change the file permission of this specific file, but to change the file permissions of any newly created files while I'm logged into this session, then I will run the command umask. Now first user, what are the permissions you want to assign to the user? So I want to assign the user read and write. Okay, what about group? I want to only assign read permission to the group. Okay, what about the others? I do not want to assign any type of permission to others. You separate them by comma, you hit enter. When you do the hit enter, and now when you create a new file, touch, and let's say CK as Cosmo Kramer, and you hit enter, and then you do ls minus ltr, and you will see the newly created file CK is now has the permission that you wanted it to assign. Now you notice you created the group permission to have only read, but it's still allowed W. Is because it's getting those permissions from its main file, which is etc bash rc. So if you want to be more specific, you could just do hit up arrow key, and you could just do group is plus G, so plus R, and you could also do again group minus W. And when you do that, then when you run the command touch, and let's do EB as a lane banners and hit enter, and then do ls minus ltr, and now you see it has that permission that you wanted to have it assigned to. Now if you log out of this session, that UMass setting will go away, because that UMass setting is only applicable to this particular session that you are in. If you wanted to have that set and permanently every time you log in and it doesn't go away, then you would have to actually modify that in your .bash rc file. The reason I'm picking ls minus la is because A option will give you all the hidden files as well, and hidden files are those that starts with dot. So right here, if you notice, .bash rc is a hidden file and it starts with .bash rc. So if you wanted to modify that, you could simply do cat .bash rc or vi.bash rc, and at the end of this file you could specify vi.bash rc, and in the end of this file you could specify umask and whatever the setting that you wanted to do for user or group or others based on what we just did before. And then you save it, and then next time when you run or when you log in, it will create files based on the file's permission settings that you have set it for it.